So then, go through the motions of mom slowly forgetting who she is, forgetting how to dress herself, forgetting how to eat. Meanwhile, I'm going through puberty. um, I don't have anyone to talk to about it, and it's embarrassing. I probably could have gone to my school nurse, but it's embarrassing, right? So, you know, forget about what my mom was going through. Like, when you're a teenager and you don't have parental guidance, you don't have someone to talk to about your changing body. I had to look up in like Teen Magazine. I think it was Teen Magazine, they had like a column from one of the feminine hygiene product companies, and it was like they'd have people would send in questions about the period, and that's how I learned about my period. And that's how I learned I had my period, because I didn't know what it was supposed to look like. And I mean, just that alone was traumatic. And so by the time I was 15, my mom didn't know who I was. So she was diagnosed when I was 13. By 15, she didn't know who I was. And I was helping her eat one night. She had started having issues with knowing which way to hold her fork, so she'd always hold it upside down. And so once I was done eating, I helped her. And at one point while I was helping her, she looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Where is your mother?" And my dad started laughing. And I held myself together enough to say, "You're right here, Mom." And then she kind of like broke out of whatever because it seemed like she was almost lucid at that point, and said, "Oh," and then kind of went back to helping, like me letting her feed her or whatever. And at the time, obviously, it broke my heart because she didn't know who I was. But over the years, as I've thought about it, I think she was just asking me what was happening to her. And even if I would have even if she would have been able to understand anything that I could have said to her, I don't, it wouldn't have mattered. And then it just went downhill from there really fast. And I was a junior in high school. And it was Easter break. And we had gotten an extra day off from school because we'd had like this gigantic freak snowstorm in April. And so, because I lived in a rural area, we didn't have enough plows. It was just a big area, and plows didn't come through early enough or whatever for us to be able to get to school. So we got an extra day, which was awesome. And then that day I had been with friends, and when I got home, so my mom, like the week before, my mom had fallen, and she couldn't even, after that, she'd kind of like, I don't know if she'd forgotten how to walk or she was had just kind of given up. And the day, that extra day off, I knew that it was bad, but when I got home from being with my friends that day, the home care nurse was there, and she, this particular day, like she normally didn't come on this day, and so I saw her car when I got home and I knew something was up. So I came in and my dad asked me to come into their room. And they told me that they didn't think that my mom would make it through the night. And I just kind of stood there. And what do you? I mean, what do you do when they tell you your mom is going to die? So my first reaction was to call my sister. And then I called my brother, and everything's kind of, if you've been through a parent dying, everything kind of becomes blurry because you're just sort of going through the motions. My sister got there like in the early evening, and my brother, I think, got in around 1 a.m. that night. And when he got there, I could see the look on his face that he was scared that she was gone already, And she ended up lasting. I remember that it was April 9th, and she lasted until just before midnight on April 11th. So, the reason that I remember is because, how could you not? But, because my way of coping was even though it was freezing and we had just had a bunch of snow, I walked down, we had a river behind our house, and there was a bench that my dad had built for him and my mom. And I went down and I sat on it, and during this time of my life, I was writing a lot of poetry, and so I remember the date because I wrote it down, and I sat down there for a really long time. I basically was trying to wait out my sister getting there so I didn't have to be, even though my sister and I weren't close at all, I just didn't want to be alone in the house, and there's a lot of other things I could say. But I think that's enough for now.